I mean, it's just this belief that there's only so much to go around, but abundance says, even if there's a finite amount of specific resources, we could be more resourceful. Human ingenuity, innovation, resourcefulness, efficiencies, like invention. And so abundance doesn't mean that we frolic through fields holding hands and levitate. It just means that we make choices that are governed by value creation instead of choices governed by scarcity. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, the crazy thing too is I feel like I was so drawn to this abundance principle. I mean, it's particularly anything mindset, growth mindset versus fixed mindset and all that, abundance versus scarcity. But man, you're going against the grain, because it's not just like, there is a very real thing called transgenerational epigenetics of like our...
I believe epigenetics is what I'm here to heal, man. Yeah. I'm doing the epigenetic work right now, right? Like I'm going into like, where did this come from? It's imprinted cellularly. Why do I believe this?
Yeah.
Are we holding on to this anger? Like generational healing is a big part of my mission now. Epigenetics, you nailed it, dude. I call it genetic wealth, and I didn't come up with that term. I learned it from the book Deep Nutrition.
Okay. Yeah, that was a great book, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Genetic wealth.
It sounds crazy to people, but it really, like, I look back, like my dad's a self-made guy, right? He has no college degree, grew up on welfare and made millions of dollars. But that scarcity mindset, being one of 7 kids, you get like a pair of socks for Christmas. So what I fell into that honestly, in my gut, it never felt right to me. And I was just kind of doing it because everyone was doing it, is the accumulation philosophy. So I'm just looking at this, like I had a 401k, even as a musician. It was crazy as a musician to have a 401k and health benefits, but I did. So I was in the 401k game, and I'm thinking of this accumulation thing. Then I start getting into nutrition. And I'm like, these people that are 65 years old retiring, they're not healthy enough to do anything fun. So it's like, they're just put it off. And most people are working jobs they hate. Thankfully, I wasn't in that scenario.
Which is part of the disease and malnutrition anyway, because if you hate your job, that's going to impact your health, man.
Dude, 100%.
The stress that's just chronic and it's in the background all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you shift people out of this accumulation philosophy? Well, I guess let's just explain the core differences here, because we're using words like accumulation philosophy, which people might even not know what we're talking about, which is basically just the scrimp and save, put your money away in traditional investments like 401k and hope you have enough money to outlive you when you retire, versus your philosophy. What are kind of the core differences there?
So I'll break down accumulation is that people believe these fundamental things in accumulation. It takes money to make money. High risk equals high return, and you're in it for the long haul. Now, if we break that down, it's money times rate times time. So it's set money aside, wait for 30 years, and hope that it grows. It's very linear, but people believe it's exponential. They think it's going to be this hockey stick through compounding interest. But compounding interest, because of fees, because of volatility, because of companies not making it in the long haul, because companies go out of business and people don't account for that in their returns. We've just seen that 95% of people are not economically independent at age 65. That's the U.S. Department of Labor statistics. So that's a 95% failure rate. I kind of look at that like the food pyramid. It's like, it's so antiquated, it doesn't work, but it's been the thing that everybody's worked from or believed in if they never questioned it. And when do you find out the food pyramid doesn't work is when you're in disease, when you're overweight, when you're like, but I had my 6 to 11 servings of bread and I had my minimal fats. And, I did, at least it meant some fruits and vegetables a little bit, but it's and that's kind of what happens with our money is everyone's selling us these things that they're not buying themselves. A bank doesn't believe that you're in it for the long haul. They look for immediate cash flow. Wall Street doesn't believe it takes money to make money. They believe it's your money they're going to make money on. Right.
Right.
And so if we just dissect this and we're like, well, the alternative is how the economy works, which is velocity. So velocity is a simple equation. GDP, which is our output, divided by M2, which is the money supply. So the number of times the dollars exchange hands in a given year tells us what the velocity is, right? So if I buy something from you, you get to take that money, you get to use it again. Whoever you buy, and that money. So if we can have that money circulate, even if it's a finite amount of money, the number of times it circulates expands wealth. Exchange creates that wealth. Accumulation doesn't have us consider exchange. It just has us consider slowly accumulating over time. So how does this work in our personal finances? If we take our output divided by our input, that tells us our velocity. So how do we increase velocity? three ways. Now, the slowest and most dangerous way is what most people try to do. They budget, right? They go, I'll lower my lifestyle, I'll defer my enjoyment, I'll do reductionist thinking, but no one really shrinks their way to wealth. But yes, it might mean that they end up with more money, right? But they might not enjoy life. So the two other ways that I like to focus on is efficiency. So what if we could plug leaks? What if we find people overpaid on tax, or they overpaid on interest, or they overpaid on insurance fees, or they have duplicate coverages or investment fees that are non-performing, or things like that? What if we plug those leaks? We can get more output with the same dollars that they started with, right? So more output. Or the bigger game is expanding our means. Mm-hmm. What if we could scale or impact more people, or more deeply impact people with the same dollars? Because we either keep our money in motion, or because we've invested in ourselves, and then we can produce more with the money that we make. So velocity is more about cash flow, and accumulation is more about compounding. And most people feel that compounding is the way to go because that's what we've been sold. But yes, compounding always works for the institution. It seldomly works for the individual. And I know this is like heresy for some people, right? Yeah. This is like whole grains aren't good. What?
Right.
This is like, it's this whole notion that this is just what everybody's doing, but it's not working, even if that's what everybody's doing. And it's not what the institutions are doing. So we want to kind of look at what's really happening here in order to decipher this. And scarcity exacerbates the problem, because when we're in scarcity, then we get into shrinking level thinking. We become more selfish, and we don't create as much value, and it's dollars that follow value. So if you're in scarcity, the things I find is, number one, spend time with people who are more abundant, so that they can ask you questions you don't know how to ask of yourself, so they can uplift you and that you can learn from them. Or serve people when you feel like you're in scarcity. Rather than wallowing in your dismay and your worry, why not instead find someone and deliver value to them? Because in that conversation, if you can find a way to serve someone, you're going to feel better if they appreciate you than if you just sit around and be like, I don't know what to do. And look, we're in a time right now where something like a virus just puts people in sheer panic, right?
It's
just
crazy.
Puts them in panic. And now their conversations become about that instead of about production. Their life becomes about what they're fearing they might lose versus what they could do to deliver value and create gain. Yeah. And so it's because people operate most of the time from scarcity rather than abundance. And people in scarcity believe that scarcity is real. They just believe. Like Thomas Malthus said, that we were going to run out of food hundreds of years ago. Uh-huh. We haven't, because of innovation, right? Because things can grow, and as long as we do certain things right, we have a good ecosystem for it. So, it's just this belief that there's only so much to go around, but abundance says, even if there's a finite amount of specific resources, we could be more resourceful. Human ingenuity, innovation, resourcefulness, efficiencies, invention. And so abundance doesn't mean that we frolic through fields holding hands and levitate. It just means that we make choices that are governed by value creation instead of choices governed by scarcity. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. And there has to be a self-awareness there too, because I love the idea of you talking about productivity, because I know when I came from the traditional world of budgeting prior to Wealth Factory, the onboarding process for Wealth Factory was amazing. Not to make it sound like a sales pitch here, but it was really extremely eye-opening for me going through how I was budgeting. It was traditional, like mint.com, but there's so many categories and all that. Like, even if I just look at health, it's like functional medicine doctor, nutritional supplements, groceries, all these things. I was like, where do I put these? Then you narrowed it down to the idea of productive and protective expenses. So now I'm categorizing things into just 4 categories. But the scarcity mindset, people don't even think about productive and protective. It becomes this thing of, like you said, most wealthy people don't look at purchases just based on price. They look at value and cost. So can you talk about that value-based spending?
Yeah, so there's 3 measures of worth. And the first measure is where most people get stuck if they're in scarcity, which is, what's the price? Right. And so if they're just looking for a lower price, they might not consider the time it took to find a better price. And what is their time worth? Right.
So that's cost opportunity, right? Opportunity cost. Yeah.
Opportunity cost. So price is what we pay, but cost is the economic impact, what you're talking about, the opportunity cost. There's something that could be low price and high cost.
Yes.
I just think of McDonald's as a good example. You get low price value menu, high cost with whatever the hell they are putting it in those fries and the pink sludge and whatever all that stuff is. Right. It's crazy how many McDonald's CEOs have had heart attacks too, by the way. I mean, you know, like, yeah, that's low price, but it's high cost because you're going to pay for it in your health.
Sure.
And that's going to be in the hospital or lost energy or whatever it might be. So cost is the economic impact. I might have an account that costs twice as much, but they saved me 4 times more. It's actually a lower overall cost, even though the price is higher. And if we only measure on price and don't consider cost, we can easily get duped because anyone can make something cheap, but is it going to be sustainable? Is it going to be valuable? Is it going to last? And I think this is what we can see in retail. There's a lot of people that go jump after something that's on sale for 50% that they didn't want in the first place because they're governed by price. Right. Cost is the economics. And then the third piece is value. Value is your own personal preference, feeling of satisfaction, feeling of joy, feeling of happiness, feeling of fulfillment. It's just what you want. And most people feel guilty for even wanting those things because of well-intentioned preachers, teachers, family, and friends telling them what they should like or not like they have any say in it. Value is perspective. So if you begin with value first, cost second, price third, that's financial freedom. That's that money is no longer the primary reason or excuse why you would do or not do something. It's only a consideration. Right. Most people, it's the only consideration. Right. So I feel like the understanding the 3 measures of worth, I'm like, what's the price? What's the cost? What's the value? I'm willing to pay a lot more for certain things because the value is exponentially greater. Steve Jobs really understood this one thing more than anything else. He understood that if he hired amazing people, he could get a 99-to-1 return on them. Now, he might pay them 250% more than other firms were paying employees of the same, title, but he was getting a 99-to-1 return on who they were because he hired the best. But most people hire cheap and they get less.
Want to master your money? Want to figure out the things that you could do to improve your finances? Click here and check out more videos like this on Money Matters.